Have you ever found a place that shouldn't exist? A group of teenagers was walking home when they stumbled on a VHS video store. The strange thing? It wasn't on the map, and no one in town had ever seen it before. Curious, they went inside. Dust covered the shelves, but every tape looked brand new. One cassette in particular caught their eye. No title, just their own names written on the label. They brought it home and pressed play. What they saw froze their blood. On the screen were their own bedrooms, their own bodies, lying lifeless in bed, and on the box of the tape, written in bold letters, was tomorrow's date. Have you ever held something that should have stayed in the past? A college student found an old bus ticket from 1981 stuck inside a library book. As a joke, he slipped it into the modern ticket machine, expecting nothing to happen. But the machine stamped it, as if it were valid. That night, as he walked back to his dorm, he heard the hiss of brakes. An old bus pulled up in front of him, the exact number printed on the ticket. Its doors creaked open. Inside, rows of silent passengers sat still, their eyes cloudy and glassy like marbles. Then the driver slowly turned his head. The student froze. It was the same man who used to drive him to school. But that driver had died 13 years ago. What if a photo showed you something that wasn't really there? A girl bought a cheap old Polaroid camera at a flea market. She snapped a picture of herself just for fun. But when the photo developed, there was a dark figure standing behind her. She laughed it off, until she took another shot. This time, the figure was closer, its outline clearer. Every photo she took, the shadow moved nearer, step by step. Finally, she snapped one last picture. And when the photo slid out, she felt the air turn cold. The shadow was no longer behind her. It was right over her shoulder, staring at the lens.
Would you watch a channel that shows tomorrow's news? Back in the 1970s, people whispered about a mysterious Channel 13, which appeared only at midnight, between channels 12 and 14, on old television sets. It showed distorted news reports, predicting events that would happen the very next day. After several deaths were announced before they occurred, the signal was buried and forgotten. Almost 50 years later, a man bought a vintage TV at a flea market. Late one night, he found Channel 13 again. Static, a warped voice reading the headlines. Then, his own photograph appeared on the screen. The news ticker underneath simply showed a future date, just 5 days from now. He panicked and switched the TV off, but it turned itself back on, trapped on Channel 13.
What if the bus you took never stopped? A young man boarded a night bus after missing his train. The inside was silent. Every passenger sat stiff, staring straight ahead. At first, he thought it was strange. But when his stop approached, the doors didn't open. He asked the driver, "Can you stop here?" The man slowly turned, his eyes hollow, and whispered, "We don't stop. We've already arrived." The bus windows turned pitch black. Outside, instead of city streets, rows of tombstones passed by in the dark. What if a mirror showed you, but not as you are? A teenager bought an old mirror at a yard sale. At first, it seemed ordinary, but each time he looked into it, the reflection wasn't quite right. It looked older, just a little more tired, a little more broken. Days went by, and the reflection aged faster. Wrinkles appeared, the hair turned gray, the eyes filled with something dark and restless. He tried to look away, but every glance pulled him back. And then one night, his reflection leaned closer to the glass. It smiled with his own cracked voice and whispered, "Tomorrow, I'll take your place. You'll never live to look this old."
Would you zoom in on this? In 1974, a yellow school bus left Rosewood Elementary and vanished. 23 children and their driver were never seen again. Police searched lakes, forests, even drained old quarries. All they ever found was the registration number, Bus 14Y76. The case went cold until 49 years later, when someone was scrolling Google Maps Street View on an old forest road and saw this. A rusted bus hidden among the trees. He zoomed in and froze. The number read 14Y76. But it's what appeared in the window that made Google delete the location completely. They say the faces were visible only for a few seconds. Part 2 is now live, if Google doesn't delete it too. This might be the creepiest thing ever caught on Google Maps. In 1974, bus 14Y76 disappeared along with 23 school children. For decades, nothing. Until a recent Google Maps update started showing the same bus randomly appearing on different forest roads, always within the same 20-mile stretch of woodland. At first it looked abandoned, but when users enhanced the window, a pale child's face could suddenly be seen staring back. Investigators compared it to photos of the missing kids from 1974, and it was a perfect match. Now those street view images keep being removed by Google, but many believe the bus is still out there, just flickering in and out of our world whenever the maps refresh. Want me to find the exact coordinates before they erase it again? This is terrifying. Some basement should stay locked forever. Tyler was 15 when his parents bought a cheap old house, hoping to renovate it. While scraping off wallpaper in the basement, he uncovered dozens of faded, missing child posters stapled straight into the wall. Every face belonged to a child who had disappeared while living in that same house. At the very bottom was one last poster, and this time, it showed Tyler's face. Underneath was tomorrow's date. Missing. He stumbled back. Just as a slow knocking echoed from upstairs above him, he called for his parents. No reply. The knocking stopped, and a whisper drifted through the floorboards. "You're next." You won't believe what happens on Route 66 at night. Jim was driving cargo along Route 66 at midnight, trying to save time. His clock reached 5 a.m., yet the sky stayed completely black and the road just kept going. He then saw a barefoot girl in white begging on the roadside. He stopped. She climbed in, whispered "Welcome to that side," and disappeared from the seat. Jim drove for hours, trapped on a highway with no sunrise in sight. Crying, he begged into the darkness. "I'm sorry, I'll never take this road again." A blinding white flash hit. He woke up parked on a sunny highway. Birds, traffic, Route 66 gone like it never existed. So, are you still thinking about taking a shortcut?
What if you found a book that was already written about you? A student walking home late at night noticed a dim light inside a library he had never seen before. Curious, he stepped inside. The shelves stretched endlessly, filled with old books covered in dust. He pulled one at random and froze. His name was written across the cover. Inside were the exact details of his life, his childhood, his friends, even what he had done that same morning. Shaking, he opened another book. Again, his name. But this one was different. It described things he hadn't done yet, things that hadn't happened. Finally, he pulled the last book on the shelf. The final line on the final page read, and then he turned the page and read these words.
Would you ride an elevator if it stopped on a floor that doesn't exist? In a downtown office building, workers whispered about a strange elevator that sometimes skipped floors. People said late at night, if you pressed the button just right, it would open on B3. But officially, the building only has 2 basements. One man decided to try. He pressed the sequence, and the elevator rattled before stopping. The doors slid open, revealing a dim hallway lined with office doors. He stepped out, and the lights flickered. Behind one door, he could hear typewriters clicking. Curious, he peeked inside and froze. The entire office was full of workers in 1970s clothing, people who all died in a fire decades ago. And the worst part, they all turned their heads at once and looked straight at him.
What if the call you answered came from your own future? A college student named Ethan bought an old payphone from a thrift shop, planning to turn it into a quirky decoration. That night, as he sat in his dorm, the phone suddenly rang. Curious, Ethan picked it up, but the voice on the other end wasn't a stranger's, it was his own. Older, strained, almost broken. The voice whispered urgently, "Don't take the road tomorrow. There's going to be an accident." Ethan's blood ran cold because only he knew that was the exact road he always took to class.